And just when we thought having a uterus couldn't get any worse, here we are. A new study just showed that over 14 brands sold in the US contain levels of lead and arsenic, two heavy metals that are shown to cause neurological and inflammatory symptoms, along with disrupting hormones. In the study, it showed that all 14 brands had some form of heavy metals in them, but the non-organic ones had more lead, and the organic ones had more arsenic. Unfortunately, we don't know what brands they tested or where these are coming from. Is it the soil that the cotton was grown from, or is it something in an added ingredient? I have always advocated to switch to organic cotton tampons and pads because they don't contain a lot of the extra preservatives and dyes and parabens. However, the fact that we are also getting exposed to heavy metals is extremely concerning. I truly hope more research will be conducted for the sake of women's health.
Recently, social media has been abuzz regarding a study which found measurable concentrations of all 16 metals they were looking for in tampons they tested, as well as elevated mean concentrations of toxic metals including lead, arsenic, and cadmium. Not even organic tampons, those extra expensive supposedly pure ones, were free of contaminants that are explicitly harmful. An NPR article on the topic reported that researchers say the study marks an important first step in confirming the presence of toxic metals in tampons, which are used by an estimated 52% to 86% of menstruating people in the U.S. Because, of course, admitting that women are the only ones affected by this would make it women's news, and who cares about issues which only affect women? The article on the topic from NPR refers to these affected by contaminants only as those who menstruate, never once saying woman or.
Hi Allie, I'm so glad that you asked. So menstruators is a term that we like to use just to be more inclusive about our period conversations, because not everybody who gets a period will identify as a woman. They might identify as non-binary, cisgender, people who menstruate, menstruators.
Female. It's frustrating that a discussion on an experience only women can have is constantly constructed around including women who prefer to escape misogyny by pretending they aren't women.
As a trans guy, it is very awkward to go into a public men's bathroom and open up something very purple that smells very, very, very distinctive compared to the rest of the bathroom smells, and then have nowhere to put the rubbish. Having a period as a trans masculine person can trigger dysphoria for a lot of people anyway, like regardless of the product you use. But something that can help is not having a product that like is shoved in your face as being like, you're a girl, you're a woman. Like that just like makes it harder to deal with. Trans masc people are not women, and I know that if there's any transphobes watching this, you're going to be like,
oh, but just accept reality. Only women have periods.
Fine, believe that. I know that trans men are men, and I know that trans men can have periods, meaning that some men have periods, and meaning that it would be great if not all period related products were geared just towards women. Simple.
Or by not offending men who want to be women.
Once a month, trans women will experience what is known as a period. Some astute viewers might notice that most trans women don't have a uterus, let alone an ovaries or anything along the lines of that. But that doesn't change the fact that they are experiencing a period. There is one of three things at work here, and two of them are the same. The main one is they're experiencing PMS. Now, people who experience PMS are anyone with a hormone cycle similar to a woman's. This includes trans women, cis women, and intersex people, or they're experiencing post-menstrual dysphoric disorder. Men can actually even experience what is similar to a period because of their hormone cycle. If a man has a high amount of estrogen in their body, they will have irritable male syndrome, I believe is what the name is called. What a fun name. Right now, my body doesn't have a uterus in it, but my body still thinks I do. It's called a period, because that's what it's colloquially known as. Linguistically, we're not going to sit there and be like, I'm PMSing every single time. We're just going to say, I'm on my period. When you're feeling under the weather, you might say, I have the flu. You probably don't have influenza. I know conservatives hate this, but it's not pedantic to say, I'm on my period. It's not wrong to say that either.
Any attempt to acknowledge the unifying factor of female biology is painted as an acceptance of being lesser or being defined by reproductive ability. Under gender ideology, womanhood is a state of mind, and one which tends to be defined by subjugation. It's no wonder that they believe misgendering, or rather acknowledging a person's sex, is an insult. When you define womanhood as obligation to be a sex object, it makes sense that women identify as transgender to get out of it, while men identify as transgender to get off to it. A period is the colloquial term to refer to the regular discharge of blood and mucosal tissue from the inner lining of the uterus to the vagina. The menstrual cycle is characterized by the rise and fall of hormones. Menstruation is triggered by falling progesterone levels and is a sign that pregnancy has not occurred. Menstruation is considered unclean in many religions.
Why are menstruating women not allowed into most Hindu?
Okay, so you gave your reasons, or Hinduism's reasons, for not allowing women into temples while they menstruate. I'm here just to educate just the same on what the lived experience and the practical reality of this ban actually looks like. For my credentials, I am a Hindu household woman. I'm a menstruating person from the Hindu religion. I grew up learning Sanskrit. I grew up learning Hindu mythology. I grew up deeply in a Hindu household. So in my opinion, not allowing women into temples while they're menstruating is a human rights violation, but let's set that aside for a second. Let's talk about the other ways in which this practice extends into a woman's life in a Hindu household. When a young person starts to menstruate in a Hindu household, they are set aside in a corner and they are made to wear white for 3 days, not allowed to bathe, not allowed to change clothes. They are only allowed to eat specific foods for all of those days, and they are not allowed to be touched, not just by men, but by anyone. This is the traumatic, ritualized practice of becoming a woman in a Hindu household, or at least in some specific Hindu households. This practice also includes religion because they do pujas and rituals within this practice. So it is not just the half sari or roni function that you see online and the gifts that you get for becoming a woman. There is a very involved religious process as a part of this experience. Nowadays, many mothers are not even allowing their children to go through this, and they're skipping that whole process and going straight to the half sari function because they don't want their child to be traumatized. Now, in the olden days, I mean the days of my mother, there was a shed that was built and women were sent there to that shed for 5 days during their menstrual process. And they weren't allowed to change clothes, bathe, eat very restricted foods. They weren't allowed to touch anything or even talk to anyone. Once again, this was done to protect the spiritual energies of the household. So a lot of times Hindus will have gods inside of their household, and so they don't want the woman to disrupt the spiritual energy of that household. What that looks like today when the shed method isn't as prevalent, or you live in the city or you live in the US, is that you are shut inside a door and the men in your house do not look at you. In some families even, you must tell your parents when you start to menstruate, even as an older woman, when your health information is private, and you have to bathe head to toe in the clothes that you're wearing, remove those clothes and put them in a separate hamper that only the woman can touch, the men cannot touch it, and you have to then ritually cleanse yourself so the men can look at you and their spirituality is not then impeded by your downward energy. In many Hindu households, especially Brahmin households, the house is the temple. So when that happens, you are made to feel like a prisoner in your own home, and you are made to feel impure in your own home. That is the lived experience and the lived oppression that women go through on a monthly basis. As someone who menstruates and believes in some spiritual elements of Hinduism, I am asking people who do not menstruate to stop telling us these reasons without understanding our lived experience and reality.
Women are put in period huts because a natural process is considered dirty.
The deadly practice against women on their periods in South Asia. In Nepal, once a month, women are sent to exile when they're on their period. They're sent to these unhygienic menstruation huts, and there's no amenities. So many places lack clean running water. Huts are located in isolated places, so it's not rare for these women to experience rape or sexual violence. Even though the practice was criminalized in 2018, it's still fairly common.
Women are told that the monthly cycle is proof of inability to lead or be taken seriously. Many are unaware of what menstruation is until it happens to them, or are ashamed of a natural aspect of the female life cycle. These are all problems that affect women, adult human females. And yet, half of the discussion is bogged down and muddled because those who report the news prefer inaccurate language to prevent hurt feelings over clear communication. Meanwhile, trans-identified males argue that their stomach cramps are actually periods. They pretend at pregnancy. They get off to experiences they will never have and can never understand.
You guys, I took a pregnancy test. I thought something looked a little suspicious, but yeah, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. I've been on hormones for around 3 years, and I knew that this was going to be able to eventually happen, and I'm super happy.
My love, that is not pregnancy. That is an extreme caloric surplus. And in my very humble, unprofessional medical opinion, and I'm saying this for your best interest, there are some tests that I would probably have done for your own health and personal well-being, but I can confidently say pregnancy it's off the table for you. Like, what the fuck is this? What are we actually doing here? Listen, if this is a troll account, which I'm hoping it is, it seems like it is, I'm glad you're getting the engagement that you were looking for, I guess, but at what expense? Making a mockery out of the community? Oh boy. We're back, bitches, in our filming area, ready to pump out this content better than ever. I've missed you guys. I love you. Thank you for tuning in, watching this, and I will see you in the next one.
The women who insist that testosterone use changes their sex and then proceed to force the rest of the world to participate further the issue. Interesting how trans-identified males are celebrated for being the first women in their fields, sent to visit presidents and given prestigious awards, and trans-identified females are publicized for doing the most female things of all.
Oh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Sweet baby.
Okay, 140.
Does it surprise anyone that the research into period products is lacking? When it took until 2022 to start using female test dummies in cars? When medications are routinely tested on only male animals? When more research is given to erectile dysfunction than the effects of birth control, and even the surgeries meant to solve the issue of femaleness lag greatly behind their male counterparts? There's lead and arsenic in the tampons. Why did it take until now for anyone to care? And why are we still pretending this isn't a woman's problem? This, dear viewers, is where we part. I've talked about periods at least 3 times on this channel. I think a lot of women, probably in the past couple years, there's been more of a transition to more reusable, environmentally friendly. But I've also seen that push of let's use reusable stuff be tied more to an ecological resistance, where there's so much waste being produced, and then there's this burden being put on women to not use tampons and pads that are disposable. And I've seen a lot of women transfer to period cups or reusable pads because of that. Now, the thing is, I switched to using a menstrual cup maybe 4 years ago, and I used to get sick, like vomiting sick, every time my period came on for the first couple days. And there was a big difference. I only feel awful for 1 day instead of like a solid 4 days. And every woman that I've talked to who's done something similar, switched to homemade pads or reusable pads or a Diva cup or any of these other reusable things, they mention that they have less cramps, that they're feeling better, that the bleeding isn't as bad. And the thing is, because this is all conjecture, this is all everyone just giving stories, it's very hard to present a case. And it's still so astounding that we do finally have at least some proof, something to support these stories that I've all been hearing over the years. Finally, there's lead in the tampons, and so the fact that your period got better when you switched to reusable stuff doesn't seem so crazy anymore. And what gets me is that it's tampons and pads. We've been using these for years and years, and it's only now that people have decided to look at it. It was only recently, like last year, that they actually tested the volume that tampons could hold with actual blood. I feel like there's such a resistance to actually using facts to support anything that's an industry geared towards women. And it's so frustrating because I know we're going to see more stories like this. It's going to be the makeup, the hair dye, the fillers, the surgeries. It's going to be all these different things that we vaguely can point to as being harmful, but can't prove because no one bothered to do the research. And when they do the research, well, that's not going to save the many, many, many women who've already been harmed by them. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.